As of last week, the view from within the Watson camp was there was a chance that the grand jury that will be considering potential criminal charges against Deshaun Watson would finish its work by late October, maybe early November. The trade deadline is November 2. AJ Perez of FrontOfficeSports.com reported yesterday that it's unlikely that the criminal probe will end before the trade deadline. And Perez confirms, and this is something that I've consistently heard the past few weeks, there's at least one team that is still willing to do a deal with the Texans despite the possibility of an indictment, prosecution, maybe even a conviction at some point down the road. And I believe that's the Miami Dolphins. The problem is the Texans want too damn much. Peter, I'm told the Dolphins were actually calling the league office to try to get some clarity on whether or not he'd be placed on paid leave if they would trade for him. And the league has not yet even considered whether to put him on paid leave because they don't have to, because the Texans have basically put him on paid leave. So a lot of moving parts here. There's still a possibility, but we're now 6 weeks and 4 days away from that window shutting for 2021. Something's going to have to happen between now and then. The Dolphins are going to have to decide Tua's not the guy, or somebody else is going to have a serious injury who's interested in Deshaun Watson already, and they decide, let's just give them what they want. But I saw Chris Mortensen said somewhere he thinks Watson's going to play this year. I'd bet the under on this for now. I think something's going to have to change before Watson ends up on the field for anyone other than the Texans, and he's clearly not going to be playing for the Texans.
Yeah, I continue. My opinion hasn't changed in this. I mean, clearly, at some point in the future, I don't know when, Deshaun Watson's going to play football again. I just can't fathom how a team can pay a ransom for a guy who, and again, look, Mike, when I say this, it's going to sound absolutely extreme. But honestly, does anybody truly know for sure that Deshaun Watson is not going to prison, is not going to have some severe sanction, maybe both from the league and legally? How do you trade for a guy if you don't know? And Mike, I'm just telling you right now, I don't think anybody in this case, anybody can be sure that on opening day 2022 that Deshaun Watson is an active quarterback in the NFL. You just simply don't know. With that being the case, how do you do that? How do you make a trade? How, if you're the Miami Dolphins, do you obviously trade Tua Tagovailoa and a bunch of things to the Houston Texans for a guy not knowing if he's playing this year, and not even being sure, making a gamble that he's playing opening day next year?
Well, it's even beyond that, Peter, because if he would be indicted and prosecuted and convicted, it would be no football in 2023, 24, 25. Who knows how long he'd be unavailable. That's the ultimate worst-case scenario, and you can't remove the worst-case scenario from the table until he is not indicted and prosecuted and convicted on felony charges. So first step is, will there be a grand jury finding of no indictment? If that happens, then the issue becomes what the league would do as a result of the 22 civil complaints. And this is still a very important issue that needs to be properly handled by everyone involved. But if you remove a felony case from the potential range of outcomes, then it changes to, will he be available in 2022? And I had someone explain to me a few weeks back, and this is an excellent point. It's one thing to pay him $10.5 million to not play this year, whether it's the Texans choosing to do it or if the league would eventually intervene and say he's on the commissioner exempt list. Next year, if this is still hanging around and there's still uncertainty and Deshaun Watson is being paid to not play, it's $35 million in salary that a team is going to have to devote to have the privilege of having Deshaun Watson on the roster but not on the field. The Texans can make it work this year. No one's going to be able to make it work next year. So there's a lot that still has to happen. But I think the Texans' view is very simple. Yeah, you may not have him in the short term, but you're going to have him for 10 or 15 years. That's where the value comes from. That's their attitude, and that's why they haven't wavered. I just don't know how realistic that is with this uncertainty. And again, the risk they're taking is they're the ones who are going to be paying him $35 million in 2022 if they can't find someone who will give them what they want between now and the start of next season.
Mike, let's say you're the Miami Dolphins, and indeed, let's say they have a significant interest in Deshaun Watson and in trading for him before the trading deadline in early November. Let's just say, okay? Now, and let's just say that the Miami Dolphins beat Buffalo on Sunday to go 2-0. So now you're the Miami Dolphins, and you are looking at this division. You've got a 2-game lead over the best team in the division. You've got at least a 1-game lead over the other good team in the division, the New England Patriots. And you look at your schedule, and you say, in the next 8 weeks, we've got Jacksonville, Atlanta, Houston, and the Jets. I mean, you have a really good chance of being a playoff team with this team. What's the object of football? Okay? The object of football is to play every season and try to go as far as you can in that season. I mean, does it make even this much sense under those conditions for Miami to trade for a quarterback who there's a good chance, I don't know how good a chance, there's a good chance he's not playing football this year? I think it's insane.
I think that Stephen Ross, who I believe is the driving force for this interest in Deshaun Watson, his view on it would be, I'm not going to get so bogged down by one season to lose sight of what we could be over 10 seasons if we have a guy like a Deshaun Watson, who is one of the best quarterbacks in football, who will have us in the mix every year. Not just, well, we need to get off to a good start. Maybe we get lucky here or there, and all of a sudden this year we're a contender, whereas last year we ultimately didn't make the playoffs. If you have Deshaun Watson and you have a coach you believe in, and they should believe in Brian Flores, you put it all together and you're in the playoffs every year. You become the new Patriots. I think that's what is driving this for Stephen Ross, because he's willing to acknowledge there's a fundamental difference based upon what we've seen so far between Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert on one end and Tua Tagovailoa on the other end, that he's not those guys. He's probably never going to be those guys. There's still a long way to go, and he could develop and he could surprise us. But for now, one quarterback in this discussion is a clear-cut franchise guy in Deshaun Watson. The other one isn't. That's why I think there could be a willingness by Stephen Ross to make the move, even if it undermines short-term this opportunity to be a playoff team now. Because what does it mean to be a playoff team if you're not going to advance? He wants to have a playoff team that advances and goes deep into January every year, like he's seen the Patriots do pretty much every year that he's owned the Dolphins.
All of that makes tremendous sense, Mike. If you knew, if the football gods could tell you that here's the first day Deshaun Watson is going to play in a football game. No one knows. So what's the hurry? I would rather overpay for Deshaun Watson in March than slightly underpay without having any idea on November 1st, than slightly underpay on November 1st and ruin the 2021 football season. It makes no sense.
Is there a way to thread the needle where you do the deal now, because whatever you pay now is going to be less than when 10 teams are clamoring for Deshaun Watson, if there is some certainty with his legal situation, and everyone that didn't make the playoffs last year is looking to upgrade potentially at quarterback, and hey, here's Deshaun Watson, so it is going to cost more. You keep Tua Tagovailoa. He's not traded to the Texans. You give them future draft picks. You figure out what you're going to do with Tua later, but for now, Tua is our quarterback. We've got Deshaun Watson. We're not expecting anything out of him. We're not even going to play him this year. We're going to put him on paid leave. We're going to pay him to not play. We're going to pay him to stay in shape and learn the system. We'll use him next year. I don't know that works either, but that would be kind of a halfway between throwing everything overboard this year when it looks promising and also building for the future.
Would Houston be willing to do that? Maybe they would be. Maybe if you gave them 3 1s and 3 2s or something like that and give them no players, maybe they would do it. The question is, do you want to ruin your draft until 2024 or 25? That's the question that you have to ask. Do you want to not be able to supplement your team with very talented young players for the next 3 years just because you want Deshaun Watson? And who knows, maybe in the offseason you're able to get a 2 for Tua Tagovailoa. I have no idea. It all depends on how he'd play this year. That at least makes a modicum of sense. But still, you still don't have any idea when Deshaun Watson is going to play football. And you're telling the incumbent quarterback on your team, hey, we drafted you 5th overall, and we've told you for a year and a half, you're the guy, you're the guy, you're the guy. And now you are the placeholder for as long as we deem that you're going to be here. I mean, it's just really anti-team.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.